Good evening, Mountaineer fans. It is Oklahoma week. And while that video is on its way, will be getting reported tomorrow. I saw something earlier today that kind of got me excited, man. And ESPN put out an article, which I'm going to read to you guys about Beanie Bishop being one of the most underrated players in the country. You know, we're not talking about in the Big 12. We're not talking about on the roster. We're talking about in the nation. And he's earned that, man. He's been targeted. He's a tad undersized, not a lot, an inch or two. And he gets targeted more than almost anybody in the country. And he's held up. He's given up very few big plays. He's given up some. As many times as he's been targeted, he would be. But as the other result of that is he's tipped a lot of footballs as a result. What's up, Tyler? So ESPN released an article, and I don't want to go give it all away, but I am going to talk about the Beanie Bishop portion of that. And he was the headliner. He was the headliner for this article. So we're going to slot that in really quick and show you guys. This is how it presented itself on ESPN Plus. Same faces, different places. Top 10 most underrated transfer portal moves of the season. You see Beanie Bishop there. And if you can't tell by now, this is me making my case for Beanie Bishop to be an All-American. Am I saying first team All-American? Well, that's yet to be determined. But I will say he is on the right track. The nation's leader, I think, has 6, maybe 7. I just heard it last Saturday. I think it was 6. Could be 8, but I'm pretty sure it's 6. And so he's 2 off of that. You get a couple big ones against Oklahoma. You can't convince me he does, or even one against Oklahoma. And let's say he finishes out the year, in the top 5 and picks all the number 1 deflected balls. How's he not an All-American on a? I think it's probably playing like a top 50 defense right now. But they've had their moments of bad this year. But they've also had 3 or 4 game stretches where they were almost elite. Anyway, here's the article from ESPN talking about Beanie Bishop. Beanie Bishop corner, West Virginia, previous school Minnesota, and even before that, Western Kentucky. Bishop is no stranger to production, developing into an all-conference performer at Western Kentucky before a 1-year stopover with Minnesota in 2022. Now, this is kind of funny. I'll never get used to reading this kind of stuff here. The 6th-year player leads the nation in total passes defended with 21, 6 more than any other player. Bishop had 5 pass breakups Saturday against BYU and 4 October 21st against Oklahoma State. He became the first West Virginia player to record multiple interceptions in a game when he had 2 against UCF on October 28th. It's very similar to what I did when I was in all-conference in 2021, Bishop told me. The same vibe, the same general aspect of how the team is, the culture, and how close those guys are. The plays I'm making are the same, just at a Power 5 school. Bishop feels more challenged by receivers in the Big 12 than he did as a rotation player from Minnesota in the Big 10. He's a bit surprised by how often teams have targeted him, noting that his size, 5'10", could contribute to it when he faces taller receivers. He's been really good man coverage. He's scrappy. He's intelligent. We've got a lot of young kids in our secondary, and he's been a really calming veteran presence, and that's kind of what you hope to have when you go into the portal. You get a productive player, but also someone with an experience who shows the way to some of the younger guys. Bishop, who has 29 tackles and a pass breakup at Minnesota, where he was the team's 3rd quarterback at nickel, but wanted a bigger role. West Virginia had used more man coverage this season, where most of Bishop's plays on the ball have occurred. Bishop had 29 tackles. Oh, sorry. He's also a sound tackler, leading WVU in solo stops and ranking 3rd in total stops, 36. As a corner, he's willing, which is always the case, Brown said. He understands leverage, and he understands the fit within the defense. And for those of you just getting in here, this is an article from ESPN, same faces, different places. on ESPN Plus, the 10 most underrated transfer portal moves of the season. Interestingly enough, another player was on that list who had a lot of contact with. I spoke with Antoine Powell Ryland, who is now at Virginia Tech. In the week and a half leading up to his commitment to Virginia Tech, probably on a daily basis, I was convinced. I thought he was going to come to West Virginia because of the need at Bandit. We had seen Jarrett Bartlett there for 4 years straight, and then it didn't happen. And that's when you saw Tyron Bradley get picked up from Abilene Christian. He's only went on to have a 7.5 season. He's at a 3-sack game. He's at a 4-sack game. Like he's done all this in a couple games, but would have really loved to have seen him off the edge for us this year. Just wanted to throw that out there. Don't forget to like, guys. What's up, Trey Sargent? WVU men's basketball. Marquette going to win their first game in Morgantown. Big with 3 minutes left. I saw that. Listen, they got a $2.5 million donation to the women's basketball team. So, and it's supposed to be stretched out over a couple of years. But don't be surprised if they compete in an IL on an elite level for a couple of years. Channel member Sasquatch, what's up, buddy? Beanie is a beast this year. Best DB I can remember from WV in a long time. Yeah, I would say so. I would say since the 2020 season, you had a guy, well, obviously Tyke Smith was in the back end, and then the guy that transferred to Auburn. What's his name? His name slips in my mind all the time, man. It's like Antoine or Twan. It's got like a T-A-U in it. Coos knows that I forget his name all the time. What's the guy's name that transferred to Auburn from West Virginia that never played a snap for him either? Anyway, he was a good player for us. That was off of one of the best defenses we've ever had in school history. That rivals even the, you think about the 2007 defense, the 2010 defense, that 88 defense was elite. Tyler Cobb says, Neil Brown mentioned in a press conference that leading the nation in passes defended may not be a good thing as it means he is dropping possible interceptions. Do I agree with that? Yeah. I mean, we saw he dropped 2 at Penn State, right? We've seen him drop a couple others, but listen, this is his first year in this system. I think he's just now to the point to where he's getting comfortable in the system. It's really a shame that he didn't come to us from Western Kentucky rather than going to Minnesota last year. I think he would have no doubt, barring injuries, an All-American season this year had he been in the system for a year already. But you got to think, man, when you're not playing fast, and these guys weren't playing fast, you saw what happened against Penn State. I promise you, Penn State does not do what they did to us in the subsequent game like right now. Do I think they're a better football team than us? Yeah, I do. But Drew Aller looked really good in his first game as a starter. They had a really good plan. Our defense was not ready to go in the back end in that game. I mean, Drew Aller was throwing from crazy arm angles. So I think that had a lot to do with it too. Jared Houghton coming with a video idea. Benefit of some of our core players not having stellar breakout seasons this year. Example, CJ and Martin equals back next year for All-American potential. I appreciate that suggestion. I usually, and that's not a bad idea at all. I'm not saying it is. I'm trying to keep positive right now, Jared, because and that does have a positive spin on it at the end. Man, Sean Martin really showed up last week. It's hard for me to do that on him after the game he just had. CJ also, right? They both coming off their best games. So this year, so it wouldn't be the best week for that. After a loss, after a losing week or something like that, if there is another one, let's hope there's not another one. I'll keep that in mind, Jared, because that's not a bad idea at all. There's just a timing to this stuff, and as a content creator, I've learned there's a time to be critical and negative, and there's a time not to be. And I've lost hundreds of subscribers. And listen, I do what I want, but I also try to keep in mind, I like to make my viewers happy as well if I can. So, in short, thank you for the video idea, man. I really appreciate that. Don't ever hesitate to give me one. Key Mesidor. Yeah, he's not exactly tearing it up at Miami. Rasul Douglas, that's not who I'm talking about either. Tyke Smith is a safety. Talking about a corner, actually, guys. No, not Jackie Matthews either, Trey. The guy that transferred to Auburn, Antoine, or I'll just look it up really quick, damn it. Oh, man. He had a really good, maybe it was the 21 year. I thought it was the 2020 year. All right. Deshaun Miller. What's up, Coos? Coos would have knew.
What's that? What do I know?
I was talking. They were saying that we were talking about Beanie, and he's having the best year at corner. And I was trying to think when's the last really good year at corner we had, and they threw out some names like Jackie Matthews. They threw out Rasul Douglas,
Daryl Worley.
But I was talking about Deshaun Miller. The year he had was really, really good, even though he couldn't replicate it at Auburn.
Yeah.
So you missed the article. Do you want to go back up? You want to see it again? Because there's some new people in here.
Sure.
All right. We're going to check back at the article real quick, guys, and kind of get Coos up to speed.
We got a basketball video to do now, my man.
Do we?
Huggins did his podcast today.
Oh no!
Gave his side of the story. But this is a football show. We'll talk about that at another day.
How did I miss that? Oh my God! You lit me on fire just now, right in the middle of the video.
Sorry.
Basically, just to kind of skim over this. This is an ESPN article in which Beanie was the head man. You know, he headlined this thing. So, wow. I mean, obviously awesome. ESPN has a high opinion of Beanie, and this is the 10 most underrated transfer portal moves of the season in America. You know, I think that's a pretty prestigious list to be on. You know, underrated, is it a backhanded compliment? Probably not. I don't think so. Somebody brought that up earlier, but basically it talks about when he was at Western Kentucky before and kind of how that has developed into what, you know, how he was playing nickel at Minnesota. It wasn't working out. And then he come to West Virginia. And then it says right here, Bishop feels that he's more challenged by receivers in the Big 12 than he did as a rotation player from Minnesota in the Big 10. He's a bit surprised by how often teams have targeted him, noting that his size, 5'10", can contribute when he faces taller receivers. We kind of talked about that, Coos.
Mm-hmm.
And Neil Brown, they had some quotes from Neil Brown talking about him being really good in man coverage and all this. To be honest with you, I think the most surprising part of this article for me has been that they noted that West Virginia's played a lot more man coverage. And I didn't know that. I thought they had been playing a lot more. I knew they played some, but apparently they played a lot more than we realized. And the majority of these times that he's getting his hands on these balls are during man coverage. And honestly, I just haven't been paying attention like I usually do to the coverages. But he's the sound tackler, leading WVU in solo stops and ranking third in total stops at 36. So, yeah.
Yeah, he's a straight up man. He's him, as they say.
And I got to give credit to Chaz, right? He's the guy that told me.
Yep.
Go watch the Penn State tape.
Chaz Rupert. Yep.
Yeah. He pointed it out 6 months ago. He said, "Listen, you need to go check out Beanie Bishop." He called it, so he deserves his flowers.
He does
on that.
He does. And Greg Flugar, who has his own channel as well, he's a Minnesota fan, and he told me, I asked him one time when I had him on my show what he felt about, and he said Beanie was one of the guys that he really hated to see leave because he was a good player there at Minnesota. And they only, like you mentioned, they only played him in the nickel spot, which is kind of baffling to me. Their corners must be really good.
At his size.
Their corners must be really good if he's playing nickel.
Yeah. I mean, look, the Big Ten's better than the Big 12 with a lot of things. You can't get me to say that the receiver's one of them. I think, overall,
with the
the Big
exception of
12.
Ohio. No, yeah, I mean, obviously Ohio State, but
Well, yeah,
outside of
Marvin
them,
Harrison. Yeah.
I mean,
But yeah,
outside of your
outside of
top
Ohio
two,
State.
I would put the Big 12 receivers up against Big 10 receivers any day of the week.
Yeah. So what he's been able to do against really good competition, even the new four have really, really good skill talent. Like UCF, their starting duo would start anywhere. They really would. Those guys are really good players. The guys that BYU had out last week and the guys that did play, had they had better quarterback play, they're really good players. We've seen them on Sports Center.
Mm-hmm.
And you go on down the list. Presley at Oklahoma State, he starts anywhere in the country. He's a really good player.
Drake
I mean,
Stoops.
you can go team to team to team. Drake Stoops, best slot player in America, probably.
Farouk.
Jalil Farouk, an elite talent.
That's who. That's probably who Beanie will be covering a lot this weekend.
Yep. Yeah. It'll be interesting, man. So, what do you think about this all? So basically, I use the All American thumbnail. What do you think about my campaign for Beanie to be an All American? I'm not saying first team. I'm not saying even has to be necessarily second team, but I think he deserves to be one of them.
I found out the other day I actually get a vote in that as part of the Football Writers Association of America. So if you want me to give him a vote, I'll vote for him.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either until like 2 days ago, and I forgot to tell you about it. But anyway, I told you I've been really busy lately, so as you know, so
yeah, absolutely.
And I don't want to make it sound like I'm bragging or anything either, but when you brought up All American, I found out I do get a vote in the All American for the All American team, and I've got to get my ballot in by next weekend, I believe.
So how does that work? Is it electronic? Is it?
It's all through email.
I should have signed up with you, man, when I had a chance. I'll do it for next year, maybe.
Yeah, I mean I don't know if it's helped me any yet or not.
Well, I mean, you haven't really leaned on it either, though, because there's a lot of contacts in there.
Yeah, I haven't. I actually, I'm going to lean on it here shortly. I've got a guy I'm going to try to get on my show. I'm not going to give it away just yet. I'll tell you off air, but I don't want to, just in case it falls through, I don't want to, I don't want to jinx it, so to speak. But yeah, I got a video idea I'm working on. I'm going to have to get somebody on the show for, and I can't get to him on Twitter because he don't follow me. So, but anyway. I didn't mean to get off on that.
Oh, no big deal, man.
Kaiser White was a lot of these. Kaiser White was a safety, though. Is the only difference. But he was he was very good, though. Man, I'd like to have another one of him.
Oh yeah, he and he's like a borderline Pro Bowl player right now for the Cardinals.
He's killing it. He and Dante both.
And it was really good. Yeah, Dante too. I'm really glad to see that.
How about Dante? 6th round pick. I think he's starting, if I'm not mistaken.
He is. Yeah, he had a sack. I know week before last.
Yeah, he has a couple sacks on the season. Proud of that.
Well,
guy,
we
man.
knew how good he was. The only thing I was wondering about Dante was how will he hold up run support in the NFL, because those guys, once they get attached to you, but Dante has that quickness advantage and he uses it. The only thing is can he offset it to not be a liability in the run game? And I think he's been able to do that. I haven't studied it. I would like to ask somebody about that because, maybe they're playing him on the edge too. That could also help.
Yep.
So how you feeling about the game this Saturday?
Actually,
let us know down in the comments, guys. How do you feel? How you feel about the game this Saturday? Because this is probably going to be my theme for my game. Is Oklahoma? I think I told you this already. Is Oklahoma right for the plucking? Right? I mean, it's either one or the other. They're going to be really fired up and play well, which is very possible, or they're falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really curious to know which Oklahoma we're going to get. Brent Venables, if you haven't watched his press conference yet today, which you probably have, knowing you. You probably haven't. He was really touchy in that press conference today, and I mean really touchy. Oklahoma just don't lose back-to-back games. It just don't happen.
Right.
So everything they were asking him was about last week. And he had to say like 5 or 6 times, we're moving on to West Virginia. We're moving on to West Virginia. We're not talking about that. We're moving on to West Virginia.
Yeah.
One time they asked him a question about something like, you've been here for a year. How are you teaching the kids how to deal with adversity? It wasn't even that bad of a question. And here's how he responded. Yeah, they just run the ball really well. Like he didn't even acknowledge it. It was the weirdest response. Like it was like his patches of red on his neck. Like he was super. You could tell he was aggravated.
Wow.
Yeah. So that makes me wonder: is he dealing with pressure?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder how he's dealing with pressure.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned Akeem Mesidor in the comments. He's not doing jack squat. He has 5 tackles and 0 sacks in 9 games.
It's hard to believe in.
If he was at West Virginia, he'd probably be an all-conference player.
And what is the difference? You know what I'm saying?
But our D-line is fine. I'm not, he made his decision.
I'm an expert on them guys, buddy. What do you mean? Listen, when Chris chugging off out of Steelman, New Jersey, that guy, is that who you're talking about? Listen, I was such a fan of his coming out of high school that I called into an ESPN show one day and told him to look for him. I said, look, this guy named Chris Chugginoff, I've watched all his tape. I really thought he was going to be a good player. And it just didn't work out for us. What's funny is he would actually be a much better fit in today's offense than what we were running then. And then he went to Ohio State and backed up Joe Burrow. So, I mean, what do you do there?
Yeah.
So.
And I didn't know about his brother.
No, you got me on. Mitch was a receiver, right?
I don't know. I didn't know of it. I didn't know he existed. So, didn't know he even had a brother.
Yeah. What's funny is I don't know why all this time frame runs together for me. The first time I was ever able to get a hold of a celebrity on Twitter, it was, because I've turned this into a little knack for myself, getting a hold of people like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I was able to do it was our guy that we're probably going to have on for St. John's, right?
Yeah.
The Schwab.
Howie Schwab.
And that was the same time that we were recruiting Chris Chugginoff in 2015. And so, yeah. And so I remember being excited about him and that happening all at the same time for some reason. And I guess just Chugginoff because he was one of my quarterback tape misses. One of the guys that I looked at and thought was going to be like really good because you look at his tape in high school, the ball just jumped out of his hand. And for whatever reason, it just never worked out.
You never know, man. Sometimes it's just not a good fit.
Right. Unfortunately. Yeah, that Dana offense, man. He didn't have a ton of arm strength, like I thought. So, what do you think it is with Akeem? This made him not. I mean, he's just there's got to be something going on there.
Maybe there's a reason.
How they're playing.
Well, he went to Miami supposedly because he wanted to play, and he wanted to play the edge rusher
defensive
position.
End, right?
Yeah, the end. And West Virginia had him playing nose tackle. Maybe they felt like he was better at nose tackle.
Well, he was more of a Dante Stills than he is a Jared Bartlett.
He's going after that. He wants that bag, man. Somebody got in his ear, told him he wanted to. I'm speculating. Somebody probably got in his ear, said, "Hey, man, you can make more money as a DN. You can go to Miami and play DN." And it looks like West Virginia probably could have gotten him to the NFL as a nose tackle. Now maybe he's injured or something. I don't know. I haven't watched Miami this year, so I don't want to. I'm sitting here talking bad about the guy. He might have got hurt or something. I don't know.
Well, I think it's a fair criticism. We see it all the time. We've seen it especially with West Virginia players outside of Tyke Smith, who's having an All-American season himself. We've seen a few guys. Deshaun Miller, we're just talking about him. Go to Auburn, literally have an all-conference season at West Virginia, and you go to Auburn and never even play.
Yeah.
And it's because we take 3 stars and get them up to 4 and 5-star potential. But a lot of times it's with good coaching, putting them in the right spots, teaching them certain things like, um, giving them the mental aspect of the game to make up for whatever physical deficiency they have. You go to Auburn and they're playing press man and you're on an island. So if you were a 3-star guy, a lot of times you're still that 3-star guy as an athlete. You may not be the top end, right? So it just sometimes it's not a fit. With Hakeem Mesidor, he has all the physical tools. I'm really surprised that he hasn't worked out better.
I want to correct myself. According to stats, sportsreference.com, he's only played in 3 games this year. So he could be injured. So he got those 5 tackles in one game in 3 games. 5 tackles and a tackle for loss. And according to them, he has a sack. ESPN didn't have a sack, so I don't
know. Interesting.
So maybe he's injured.
Silas, what did you say?
I was gonna say if I could, I'm interested now to talk to somebody from Miami and find out if he's injured or whatever.
Yeah. Silas, I had been in contact with Howie Schwab recently, and so we do have a scheduled date for him to come on the show. Hoops from the Hills. By the way, don't forget to subscribe to Kuz's Corner if you're for some reason not subscribed to Kuz's Corner. That's that guy right there. He does an excellent job over there. So don't forget to subscribe to Kuz's Corner at Kuz206 on X as well. Yeah, so we should have him on unless something goes wrong on his end for St. John's week. Really looking forward to it. I've talked to him. I talk about it all the time. So be looking for Howie Schwab, but I can't guarantee it, even though he has agreed to it. All right. That's a fan base, Coos, by the way, that I really miss. Like, now that we do this, that's a fan base I would like to know some people at, right? I would love to have a Miami guy on and talk, about the Hurricanes because, you want to talk about it, you want to talk about, they're one of we get top 10 anyways, right? Top 10 football program of all time.
Absolutely.
You're going all time.
Well, I don't know about all time, but they're probably in that conversation at least.
Yeah, like them in Nebraska, and they have both fallen completely out. And they've had what we've had for 4 years, they've had for probably 10, outside of the occasional good team. We had a good team with Van Dyke a couple years back, and then that was it. They just, no matter who they get there. Now, I do think Cristobal will turn that thing around eventually, but
okay,
he had weird for them.
He had a season-ending injury.
Hate to hear that.
Yeah, he will miss the rest of the year with an undisclosed injury.
Undisclosed? That's unusual.
It's an apparent foot injury in the Texas A&M game on September 9th. He also dealt with a foot injury last season. He had a good year last year, too. He had 38 tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, 7 sacks. He was an all ACC honorable mention guy last year, so he had a good year. So he probably would have balled out this year had he not got injured. So
yeah,
I now feel guilty for what I said. He's been injured.
We all make mistakes.
But no, I don't ever wish injury on a guy. So,
yeah, Goose is riding the bench of Troy. Honestly, I thought he was going to win that job until I saw the guy that won it. He's a good player. I would have liked to have seen Goose as well in this system we're running right now. He had a really great straight line speed, and he and Garrett are pretty similar. He's not as athletic as Garrett, but he's got a big arm and can throw it deep, and has got some speed. I think Goose would have been good in this offense too. But you can't keep them all. And I still think when Nico figures it out, you know, Garrett better stay healthy, because if Nico ever actually figures it out mentally, he might not come off the field if that ever does happen. I still feel that way about him. But now I just don't have anything bad to say about Garrett.
Yeah.
Although last week was a drop-off week for him. I haven't talked about that yet, but I felt like Garrett missed a bunch of throws last week that were pretty easy. And now a lot of this was game plan oriented too. They didn't ask him to do a lot because they weren't trying to put it on tape for Oklahoma. That's how you know your program's in a pretty good spot. How many called quarterback runs were there last week, Coos?
Called quarterback runs, 1 or 2 is all. Very few.
If that. So, and when's the last time you seen that? You know? And that's how you know, I think once Neil got the flow of the game and realized, oh yeah, we're better than these guys as long as we don't screw it up. Garrett had a really easy game. Now I hate that he missed those throws to CJ, although CJ did touch them. They were difficult catches. I mean, they're fully extended. I just want to see Garrett clean that part of his game up so bad.
Yeah, and
it's like he gets excited. I think it's, still to come with experience. He still gets a little excited in those moments where you need some touch, and he just zips it.
It might be next season before he does it, but I think he'll do it.
I can't stop thinking about this team next season. By the way, I can't go on say who, but I did get confirmation yesterday, Coos, and you know this. We're going to probably be in good shape next year to keep all these players and sign some more through NIL.
Yeah.
Can't say where, who, or how.
Yeah, we'll probably lose a few regardless, but
yeah.
But hopefully not as many as we have the last 2 off seasons.
Yeah. But if you think about, let's just say let's just talk about a nucleus, Coos. Who do you want to see us keep? Talk about the nucleus of guys that we need to keep. Garrett's obvious. Nico's obvious. If we can keep them
Wyatt Milam, if he decides to come back, is one.
That's a really important piece. Maybe the most important piece.
I would say Aubrey Burks.
You don't think Zach?
Well, Zach's probably going to go to the NFL, so I'm already assuming he's gone. He could come back, but I don't think he will.
You pay him. You got to give him more than the first round pick.
Yeah, but but you got to balance it. Do you want to pay him and risk losing somebody else? I don't know. I mean, he is that good though. I mean, he makes that offensive line tick. So
yeah,
if you can keep him, keep him.
I guess that's a good place to start on the O-line.
I would say,
Tone Walsh will be back as long as you don't leave.
If it comes down to CJ and Jaheim, which one do you keep?
I think as long as you keep one of them, but I think at this point, here's my thing. CJ, he may, after last week it looks like he figured it out some. He still hasn't played 20 games as a running back in his life. Jaheim's got more explosion. Absolutely, he does. I think the safe bet would be Jaheim based on what we've seen, but I would be scared not to keep CJ too. I really would, because if CJ figures it out, he's a problem. He is, and unfortunately, I just don't. It's a good problem to have. Let me just say that. But I would take Jaheim based off of he's played running back his whole life. I think he knows how to protect the football. That's something CJ hasn't done. Let's put it on the ground. I'll give him that. And really, I mean, he's just so explosive. It's a tough one. But I'll take Jaheim. Obviously, the linebacking core, Ben Cutter, Josiah.
Dude, I get giddy when I think about our linebackers.
You have to. So we've got 4 guys: Josiah Trotter, Ben Cutter, Obviously, we've got we've got an injured guy, Trey Lathan, that's possibly the best of them all. Although in camp they said Josiah looked like he was even better. So then and it's wild to think, and then James Hurd Jr., who I honestly thought was going to be Trey this year, but Trey has an extra year under his belt to James. These are all 4 really young players. It's the back end, right, that we really have to worry about. And then obviously Aubrey can come back.
Hershey McLaren, I was looking. Hershey McLaren has a year of eligibility left. Anthony Wilson has eligibility left. Aubrey Brooks has eligibility left.
Stephen Ford came on the show and said, "What did he say, Coos?"
I don't know what you're referring to, man. So I don't know how to answer it.
When we talked to Stephen Ford, remember what he said about keeping players? He said, "You turn them into 5-star players, and we'll pay them like 5-star."
Oh players. Yeah. Okay, I do remember that now.
And
we talked about a lot that day, so I couldn't.
Oh yeah. Well, usually if I tee you one up, you usually remember.
I know. Sorry.
Oh, it's all good. But so I'm expecting to see that. I mean, I don't think he would have said it if he didn't believe it. What's up, Jeffrey Landis?
Patrick Mills' comment. Cole Taylor has eligibility too, Silas, on the offensive side. I think, because he was only at LSU 2 years, right? So he should have at least one
he's got eligibility. Yeah.
Winston Wright, we probably won't know about. So he can't actually. I don't think Winston. Well, I mean, actually, he can enter he was a grad guy, so I think he can enter the transfer portal whenever he wants to. But that's probably it's an off-season deal. You're not going to start hearing about portal stuff until off-season, I wouldn't think. Doesn't mean they're not already scouting him and stuff like that. But there was a comment too earlier, Paul, I wanted to answer.
Go ahead.
Trey Sargent said, "Who's the transfer who's hurt us the most when he left?" I think because of how bad our defensive secondary was a year ago, I think you have to look at guys like Tyke Smith, Daryl, Rashawn Miller, and who was the one? Jackie Matthews, and there's another one, and I can't think of Daryl Porter. I think those basically all of our secondary that we lost because all of those guys were good.
Mm-hmm.
And heck, you could even argue Nick Troy Fortune hurt us. He ended up going to San Antonio.
Yeah,
UTSA.
Texas San Antonio.
I was trying to think of the acronym. UTSA, and had a pretty good career there. So,
unfortunately, they don't have any eligibility left.
Nope.
Wished. Listen, I mean, you could make an argument for a lot of these guys to be number one. Lee Kova's another guy that he'd have to be in the first 5 guys you mentioned, I think. But with what you have coming back next year, even though they're younger, but Lee has really turned into an important piece on this defense. But man, if you want to ask, you're asking me that question too. Who's hurt us the most?
Yeah.
Transfer?
What do you think?
It's a tough one. I'll say Josh Seals was a big loss. He went to Oklahoma State and had an all-conference year. That's the year they were in the Big 12 championship game. And he turned out to be one of their best offensive linemen, their second best offensive lineman, behind the guy that got picked in the first round of the draft. So I think Josh Shields is a huge loss that nobody talks about. And I think you put him at that left guard spot rather than who we had there last year. Man. But and obviously, you start talking about receivers, Winston and the other kid that what's the other kid?
We lost Sean Ryan, we lost Isaiah Esdale, and we lost Winston Wright. All in the same
there's
season.
Another one. There's another one.
And Sam
Brown.
Maybe
it was Sam Brown. Yeah. Well,
Ollie Jennings.
There's another one. Ollie Jennings. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Ollie Jennings. We could put together a freaking almost an all-conference team with the receivers we lost. Caden Prather is another one that would have been pretty big, yeah. So, yeah, we can lament what we've lost and all that. Very fair. But man, if we could just keep what we got again, we're in that same spot that we were in 2017, 18, 19, right? Where we finally build up to what we thought, was a good nucleus to return with, and we lost everybody in 19, right? Or 20.
Mm-hmm. 21.
21. Gosh, the gears get confusing.
Yeah.
In 21, we lost everybody. That's the year. That's the off season of 20.
Yeah. We've lost a bunch.
We got our chance again.
Yeah. Let's see. Now this year will tell us whether or not this year we should know for sure, because Coach Brown has talked about NIL being behind, and that's the reason we lost guys. This year should answer that question. And Kelsey makes a good point there. He says even without those guys, WVU has shined. Maybe those guys leaving somehow helped. Some of those guys could have been, and obviously we're never going to know who. Some of those guys could have been locker room problems. We've heard Neil talk about that.
Heard that.
Yeah. Neil, and Neil's talked about that in press conferences. There were guys that they actually encouraged to leave because they didn't fit the culture. And it don't necessarily mean locker room issue, but maybe they just weren't the right fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he wanted guys that were 100% bought into what they were trying to do, the way they wanted to coach and the way they wanted to play. And some of those guys, were brought in under Dana and probably had different ideas as to what they wanted. So I think that's, not all of the guys that we've lost, I don't think have been, some of them were probably encouraged to leave. I don't know who. I don't have any proof of who it was or anything like that. But Neil's alluded to that himself, and actually said he wished would have done that. He actually said he wished he would have done that his first year here with more guys, but he didn't.
I'm assuming you mean Beanie Bishop training, but yeah, you're right. You don't get Devin Carter or Beanie Bishop without. But so the teams that are winning are able to retain their best players and also add where they need, right? We're not talking about what Colorado did and signing 82 guys. That's not being healthy. That's not healthy. The best teams from with the data that's out there right now are able to retain the majority, the core of their best team, what they have remaining, pay those guys at the most important spots, left tackle, pass rusher, quarterback, right? Those are the three most important positions on the team in corner. So you've got to start there. But then you start to add where you don't have. And for us, that's going to be corner coming up next year, probably number one on the list. Depth at linebacker is going to be important, I think, because we got a bunch of young guys, but we don't know. Offensive line is going to be, we're going to be missing a few pieces. I've even heard Mike and Chris talk about, hey, Garrett Green's great, but what if you can get an elite guy, a truly elite guy, quarterback? Do you think about it? I think it's a fair question. So, there's a lot of ways to go, and you're right, not everybody can start. But from what I understand, it's possible to keep what we have and add. And that's a fair thing to ask for. I'm not saying do what Colorado did.
Right. No,
that's not fun anyway. I don't want to add 82 new guys or 70. I'm talking about, with the bet like TCU, I think the year they won it, they were able to add like 16 guys, or something like that. 12 guys, 16 guys. And luckily they had Duggan already there and that extremely good offensive team they had, but they were able to add on defense what they needed. I think that's hopefully, like I said the other day, this coming year could really be our Kansas State year, our TCU year. It really could be. I think we're set up for it. See what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of alluded to that in my last video. I mean, that's one good argument for keeping Neil Brown, even if we, unless we lose out and don't win another game, and the wheels fall off the thing. I just don't think it makes sense to fire him at this point. Not with all this talent that we have. Like I said, right. Unless the wheels completely fall off and we don't win another game, which I don't see that happening.
I really need to see him beat Oklahoma, for me personally, just to feel like really good about it. But even if he loses to Oklahoma and wins the last three, and you get to 8, 9 wins in a bowl game, possibly, um, I feel good about that. I will. But I just want to see Neil breed a really good team on the road. He hasn't done that yet.
Mhm.
And you can't say that we're outmatched in spots in this game. Oklahoma's a better, more talented roster. I don't think that's fair. But we're better where it matters, and that's up front. So we got a chance. And
Yep.
good coaches win games where they have advantages to exploit. And Oklahoma gave up a bunch of yards to Oklahoma State. They were very open about that in their press conferences. I watched every Oklahoma press conferences they put out on their website today, every single one. They all knew they gave up a bunch of yards to Oklahoma State. They said it's basically the exact same scheme. That's their words. We run the same scheme or similar scheme to Oklahoma State, the way that they're running it right now. And so
Mm-hmm.
they're basically got a second try in a row at the same scheme is how they feel. Be
That doesn't
interesting to
sound
see.
good for us.
Yeah, it made me worry when I heard that because that's three different players said that. It's
You're talking
basically the
about
same thing
you're talking
Oklahoma
about
State runs.
you talking about our offense and Oklahoma State's offense.
Yeah, yeah. They said what Oklahoma State's turned into
Mm-hmm.
is what we do.
But you got to look too. Neil has done a great job this year, and I'm sure Chad Scott's played a role in this too, in the game planning stuff. During the week, they've been putting a lot of wrinkles in, man. Every single game, it looks a little different.
Yep.
Different motions, different guys on the field, different formations, and they might be running the same plays, but they dress it up a lot different. And they've done a great job of that this year, man. So maybe that'll help if they can continue to do that this week. Hopefully they don't run out of ideas for this one, but I don't think they will. I don't. That's what makes offensive coaches so great, And Neil
Mm-hmm.
Brown was always known as a great offensive coach. And then after he came here, things kind of went south. But I just don't think he ever had the right guys. And now part of that's his fault. I've
Yeah.
always said that recruiting's half the job. So
Yep.
it's on him. But for whatever reason, he was just never able to get and keep the right guys that he needed.
Yep.
And now he's got a lot more of those guys there that he needs to win with. He needs more of them because we don't have the depth we need at certain spots. But
yeah,
he has more than he's had in the past.
Well, look at what he's done this year. When you look at the totality of it, the running back room is basically completely different outside of CJ. The wide receiver room is completely different outside of Devin Carter. None of the guys that are contributing right now were supposed to contribute.
Outside of Preston Fox, actually.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, he was. It was this. Who were the three guys that everybody talked about before camp is over?
Oh, you mean this year? Oh, you talking about you're talking about camp. I'm sorry, I thought you meant last season.
Yeah, well, I mean, like Jeremiah Aaron, Cortez Braham, and Devin Carter were supposed to be the guys.
Yep.
And Neil has taken that situation and made something good out of it.
We're better.
I mean, that wasn't. We're better. I mean, two of your projected best receivers out of camp aren't even on the team anymore. They're not even. It's not that they aren't playing well; they freaking quit. Your other two veteran running backs, same thing. Which I'm not saying Justin quit or Jalen. I don't, but listen, that pass against Houston, I don't know what it did to him. I don't know if it just killed his confidence or what. But he's been gone since then.
Yeah.
And I hate that for the kid.
He'll probably transfer.
You look at the limited opportunities that Jaheim has had, right? What did he do last week and the week before? And how many of those same runs did we see Jalen and even Justin get and just not go anywhere with the, so what is it? Why is he breaking out and they're not? Is there something going on mentally there? Because it's not talent. I don't know.
But I think I saw a comment on about defense. I think we saw how important a healthy Aubrey Burks is to this defense.
There's no doubt.
I mean, that defense against BYU looked a lot different than the defense looked the previous 2 weeks, previous 3 weeks, actually, all the way back to Houston.
Yeah, it's taking a while to come back.
And I think Ben Cutter, now that Ben Cutter has more experience, he's looking better.
Yeah,
he's had 2 really good games back to back. I mean, heck,
he has a blunder every now and then.
Yeah, he had a PFF grade of 83 2 weeks ago. I mean, that's for a true freshman. That's pretty darn good.
That's almost elite.
I love watching that kid when he sits up at the podium. He looks like He-Man, man. His freaking neck. His neck's wider than his ears. I mean, I'm like, good God.
And he still needs to gain a little bit of weight.
He just looks like a linebacker, does he not?
Yeah. He doesn't have Nick Kwiatkowski's size. You know, he's not 6'4", 250 pounds, 240 pounds like Quit was.
But I think he's got better speed, better athleticism.
He's got better speed, and he's just more. Kwiatkowski got by with until he figured out his athletic ability. He was vastly underrated athlete, and he was also on that Tony Fields team, right? So he didn't really. Tony Fields just took everybody's publicity that day, that year, right?
Yeah.
So, you're right though. I love the kid coming out of high school.
Me too.
He's got a nose for the football.
He jumped out on film, man, big time.
Oh yeah. Similar to Anthony Wilson, you know, just how they're really solid tacklers.
He had a good week.
He started to show up. Yeah, he's starting to show up.
You go back to last year. Anthony Wilson's trajectory is reminding me of Jasir Cox last year. It was the last third of the season, or the last quarter of the season even, and Jasir Cox started playing really good football.
I'd love to have him back.
Maybe Anthony Wilson is doing that same thing, you know, because remember, he came from a smaller school, an FCS school, I believe. So
North Dakota State.
It takes those guys a while to figure it out. Or to get, not to figure it out, but to adjust to the speed. And maybe now he's adjusting to the speed of the game, and his coverage is getting better. His tackling's always been pretty good, but I think his coverage has gotten better the last couple weeks. If he can keep that up, I mean, he had that pick against UCF, and then he played last week. He had a good week. Had a couple. I think he had a pass breakup or two. Plus was one of the highest tacklers on the team. So I really like the trajectory he's on.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you what, man, if this defense can keep its stride, man, and the way our offense is looking right now, there's no reason we can't beat Oklahoma on Saturday. None whatsoever.
Yeah. This is the best passing offense I think we've faced this year.
By far. Oh, just look at Dylan Gabriel's numbers, dude. It will blow you away.
So we're either going to get roasted and get to a shootout, or we're going to play ball control. I mean, we're going to, depending on how they look, and the thing about Gabriel is he's really hard to pressure. He's extremely mobile, way more mobile than people give him credit for. And I would venture to say he might even be the strongest quarterback in the league. And I know people will look at that and say, what? I watched this dude absolutely bury people last week in the run game. I'm talking about just absolutely bulldoze cats over and over again, breaking first tackle. You'll see it again on Saturday. If he gets one-on-one with somebody, he is a load to bring down. And he's not very big, but I wouldn't, just because I'm a weirdo, I wouldn't look at pictures of him without his shirt off and with whenever he was practicing, just to get a gauge on how muscular this kid is, because I was like, what in the hell, man? He doesn't look that strong with his pads and stuff on. He looks a lot like Nico, really, really muscular guy. So he obviously works out. That sounded really bad, I know. But, I'm a football junkie, man. So it is what it is. But,
whoa,
yeah,
Trey.
So, I mean.
He was arrested Thursday night, and did he still play in the game? That's surprising.
Who?
Farouk from Oklahoma was arrested, he said.
Oh, I didn't know about this.
Well, but he still played in the game, I think, didn't he?
Yeah.
Dylan Gabriel's about the same size as Garrett from a weight standpoint. That's surprising.
Trey Stutzman was doing interviews today, So I'm assuming he's going to play. We'll see, I guess. Apparently, they've got several guys out for this game, but he won't mention who. It might be people they've already had out.
Could have been. Yeah, I'm supposed to be doing a show with an Oklahoma guy tomorrow night, so I'll hopefully get some deets on that.
Cool. I think that's a fair assessment, Tyler. I think you get to look in games like this, in his early young career. I won't say for all time, but is Garrett going to be able to take the mantle and be a great quarterback this year? That's a fair assessment, because he's probably going to have to take over this game at some point. His legs, maybe make a throw. I just don't see us blowing somebody up for the third week in a row. We didn't really blow UCF out, but we extended that game, in the last quarter and a half, and we're the better team. BYU didn't have a chance; they were so outmanned, But is it fool's gold, Coos? Do you think, or are we growing as a team? Which one is it? Because
I think we're growing as a team. I mean, I'm not saying it's a guaranteed win. You know what I mean? But you can just tell the team, they like being around each other. They have good chemistry. They seem to be having fun again. Last year, there were times in the last few years, which, I mean, obviously winning helps that, right? But there were times it just didn't look like they were having fun. And I think this team's having fun.
What's that all about, Coos?
They showed one of my tweets on their show yesterday and said our good friend, well, Smokey always calls me Cuz, but Smokey said our good friend Cuz, and they showed my tweet and talked about it as a topic on their show.
What was it?
The one about where I said I said according to three guys that the Big 12 is giving West Virginia 2 bye weeks in 2025 to offset 2 trips to the Mountain Time Zone. I'm assuming that's what he's talking about.
Ah, gotcha. Not having a coming out party, Shannon. Wednesday at 9 p.m., Thursday expired tags. Driving radically and has 4 warrants out. What? That'd be big if that was the case. I mean, I don't wish that for anybody.
If it'll help us win that game.
Yeah, and I would say the opposite for Oklahoma. I think they're going to be motivated to win this football game.
Yeah, definitely. They're going to be pissed. After losing 2
they're not going to want to lose to us on the way out, too.
And we beat them last year, too. They're going to have revenge on their mind.
The one big factor, though, Coos, to me is I think, Brent Venables is a great defensive coach and probably be a great head coach one day. But at this point in time, he's not a Lincoln Riley or Bob Stoops, right? So is he that head coach that is going to make Oklahoma if we were facing a Lincoln Riley team or the Bob Stoops team, be a lot more worried. The fact that he's their head coach, actually, I'm worried a little bit less. And I was actually thinking about that earlier today. Why am I worried less about Oklahoma right now? Because Lincoln Riley's not there. If he was there, to me, they'd be a lot more dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
It's just me, though. Wouldn't you be a little bit more worried about a Lincoln Riley-led Oklahoma team?
Oh yeah, because they'd be putting up 50 points a game probably, and obviously 50 is exaggerating, but they'd probably be scoring 40 a game.
Well, you got to think they've had to, even though they can afford talent on both sides of the ball, some of that offensive talent has gone over the defensive side of the ball for them, which has been good. But Lincoln, as you can see at USC, if there's anything left, it'll go to the defense. But for the most part, it's all coming to the offense.
Yeah.
That's the philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Got hypothetical here. Well, we better hope Neil doesn't get picked up if that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it doesn't take but one good year anymore these days. Used to be a body of work, for a coach to get picked up. But, somebody in coaching circles, people know why Neil struggled at West Virginia. They know about the Shane Lyons thing. They know about the NIL deal. They know about what Dana left him. And the right AD can sell that to whoever he needed to sell it to and get Neil hired somewhere.
And he's very well respected as a coach.
Very well respected, man. So do I think Neil would go? I think it would have to be a really, really good job. I don't think he would leave for a lateral move. He's in a great space as far as, especially if he's got job security beyond this year, and culturally where he's from in the part of the country that matters. It would have to be a Kentucky. It would have to be probably
Florida. Would he take
Florida? Maybe a Michigan State.
If Billy Napier gets fired.
But
here's what I would
absolutely he would go to Florida. I mean, I would be shocked.
Here's what I'm slightly concerned about if that happens. Neil's taken a lot of crap from West Virginia fans over the last 4 years. And if he might be waiting on that opportunity just so he can make a clean, fresh start somewhere else where he's feels more appreciated. And I wouldn't blame him if he did. I wouldn't want to see it happen. You never want to see your coach leave for another job, but now if he wins out and wins a nice bowl game, then I might actually get on board myself with giving him an extension because you might have to keep him.
Right.
I don't know.
Well,
a lot of people wouldn't agree with that, but
it's tough. You get the right guy in, and you can always win inside of 2 years, no matter who it is these days. Especially the people that at Country Roads Trust are on board, right? And the people that are behind that, the boosters and such, Ken Kendrick, those guys. That's really what you need. But what you can't simulate is the culture that we have built with Neil, the returning players we have with experience in the program. That all doesn't come overnight, and it can't be replicated. It's not something you can go out and get in the transfer portal. And it's something I think you need to take close account of when considering all this, if it does come up.
Yeah. From what I understand, Neil has the best agent in the sport. So he's going to leverage everything he can to get Neil a good deal somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Listen, if he wins 10, 9 even, probably going to try to give him an extension.
I do not want Jimbo Fisher. Sorry, David. He's not been able to do anything. He had one great season. He won it. Yes, he won a national title at Florida State. But ever since then, he's gradually been going downhill. And
he does the least with the most, right?
I've heard that he left Florida State basically in shambles when he left. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. That was one person's opinion. But he can recruit, but what can he do with it? That's the question.
Yeah. Now, would a Jimbo Fisher with an all new staff, maybe that works, because certainly there's something broken within that staff, within who they got there. They've had, what do you think, Goose? 5, 6 top 10 recruiting classes in a row?
Something like that.
There's no reason they should be a Georgia. They should be in Alabama. They should at least have made it to the playoffs once somewhere along the line, or they should be sniffing it. College Station, I think they would be, at this point, they would want to be where Oklahoma is right now, just somewhere in that vicinity. They're not even ranked. They're not even ranked. You can't, and I mean, look, if you allow, let's say we said, Neil, you could have 3 guys on offense and defense from College Station, bring them to West Virginia. I'd be stoked. And you could roll the dice. Mm-hmm. Give me 3 at random from offense, random from defense. You're going to hit. There's too many 5 stars, too many 4 stars, and so like you said, he does the least with the most I've seen anybody do in a long time. And I was on board with him coming to West Virginia as of last year. But I thought he was going to turn it around this year with the new OC.
Same.
And he just hasn't.
Yeah,
maybe it's just a bad fit in College Station for him. Maybe. And maybe he'll kill it next place he goes. You just never know. It's such a finicky sport.
Yeah. David, I know you're not a fan, man. I've seen your comments, and I respect your opinion. But as far as Doc Holliday goes, Doc Holliday's I think he's close to 70 years old, maybe. I know he's in his 60s. No offense to those people in their 60s on here, but he's at the end of his career. And my gut feeling tells me that if he wanted to get back into coaching, he would already be back in coaching. And heck, maybe he is, and I just don't know it. But I just feel like must be pretty happy where he's at right now, whatever he's doing in life. And he probably doesn't want to be involved in this new era of college football with the NIL and all that mess. That's one reason I think teams are looking at younger coaches for a lot of these jobs, is because things are so different now than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. And they're going to be more likely to embrace the new way and relate to the players better. I mean, look what Josh Eilert did in basketball. I mean, my gosh, he hired a guy that just graduated college with no coaching experience. So, I mean,
yeah.
So because they can relate to players, and it helps in recruiting to have those kind of guys. So,
absolutely,
that's just my opinion.
All right. Well, we've been on here for an hour and 6, Coos. Anything else you want to say, man? Anything else you want to talk about?
No, man. My conscience is clean.
Yeah, Tyler, I was trying to turn my monetization on while he was talking there, and I forgot. You can't do it till the video's over. So, at least I haven't figured it out yet. Jonathan Smith at Oregon State. Yeah, people bring him up all the time, Trey, but he, that'd be like saying Neil Brown would leave Kentucky. Like, this is where he went to school. It's where he played football. It's just incredibly unlikely to happen. I mean, Rich Rod situations do occur. They do. It happens. But that was for Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
So Oregon State to West Virginia is an upward move, in my opinion. Now, only because they're a good football team, but only because they're kind of being left behind, right? So that's the reason. If everything was everything, and they were in the Pac-12 as usual, you could even argue that it's a lateral move from the coaches being able to win standpoint, not from a facilities tradition, all that. We killed them in that. I'm just talking about straight up from he could win there just as well as he could win here, just about.
Yeah,
he's proven it. So and that's just where he's from. I don't see him leaving Oregon State, unfortunately. I think you got to look at Jim's the Voda, baby.
read that comment.
Oh, thanks, Sasquatch. Appreciate that, man.
He's great. He's great about that, man. Did you plug him early in the show?
I did not. I actually forgot.
I always forget on my lives too.
Yeah, I usually do. Thanks, Sasquatch. This episode has been brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, Jeep, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing, ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing. Only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near Sasquatch.
Or near you.
Or near you.
I love it, man. I love it.
There you go, WVU fan. I mean, I know we're about to get off here, but yeah, Tony Gibson. I think he's a name.
If we were to hire a guy that doesn't have head coaching experience, he would be at the top of my list.
Yeah, although what Rich Rod's doing at Jacksonville State is truly impressive right now. He's proven that his offense still works. It still works against Power 5 competition. And I'm telling you, man, Rich Rod would not be, in my opinion, a bad idea. I think he's got 10 years left in him. You never know, man. I mean, there are other places I would rather go first than Rich Rod first, but you could do worse. He knows how to win, man. He had some bad years at Arizona. He was out of place. I feel like, Michigan wouldn't let him be who he wanted to be there. It's very well documented. He's finally at a spot where they bought into what he does, and when people buy into what he does, so far he wins. So,
yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you, man. Don't forget to subscribe to Kuz's Corner. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and all that in between. Appreciate you guys, man. You guys are loyal. You always come and show up for the lives. Me and Kuz appreciate that. Get ready for this game on Saturday, man, and send positive energies the Mountaineers' way as they travel out to Oklahoma to whip that Oklahoma ass, baby.
That's right.
All right. This has been another edition of Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. This episode is over. We are out.